Welcome back, students. After my first video on understanding the structure of the argument and also the keywords of the question stem, here is my second video that goes with what is called as understanding the focus of the argument. Focus or the main idea. That's what I mentioned in my first video. So here I'm presenting you a question that deals with understanding the focus of the argument precisely. Here it goes. Here is the argument for us to understand. What does it say? Researchers found that when tossed, a coin is 51% likely to land on same side facing up as when it started. They conducted 3,50,757 coin flips using coins from 48 global currencies to prevent design bias. This appears to validate Stanford mathematician Percy Diaconis' findings that suggested a slight deviation of about 1% in coin toss toward the side it started on. So if you look at the argument, what does it say? I've underlined the key parts there. Researchers found something. They experimented, they found something. There's a deviation, right? As you can see, right, of 1% roughly, 51% likely to land on same side. And then they have done various experiments, not just one or two, it is 3.5 lakh plus times that they have done the coin flips. Then that experimentation and observation appears to validate a Stanford mathematician's findings. This is in sync with that. This is what the argument says. And then the mathematician's findings also suggest a slight deviation of about 1%, which is more or less the same as the researchers found it to be. This is what the argument says. Now, this is the scope of the argument. Let us not bring the outside information that we have as far as the argument is concerned. We need to stick to the information that is given to us. We are answering the question. It is not asking us to find out what the factual information is or whether this is factually right or not. It is asking us, right, something related to, as the question says, focus of the argument. Which of the following highlights the focus of the above argument? Now the keyword here is focus, hence it is underlined. Let's go into each choice and then find out whether it is the focus or not. The first choice, A. Researchers prove that coin toss is not as fair as it thought to be. Initially, they thought that it is fair, but what researchers have found, right, showed that kind of deviation of 1%. And the findings of the Stanford mathematician also suggested that deviation of 1%. If researchers have found that to be the deviation and they find almost the same things as observed in the Stanford mathematician's findings, both are more or less the same. So researchers prove that coin toss is not as fair as it thought to be. Could be a possible focus of the argument that this deviation exists. Choice B. Researchers claim that coin toss is as fair as it was thought to be. Now, just the opposite of choice A. The negation of not is removed here. Now, it is not fair. It is not fair is what the argument says, but the choice here, choice B says that it is fair. Hence, this cannot be taken. Choice B is incorrect. Moving forward, choice C. Researchers predict that coin toss is not as fair as it was thought to be. Now, researchers found, you can see the argument that is underlined. They found through their observations. It is not a prediction. So this is irrelevant to the context of the argument. This cannot be the focus because findings and predictions are two different things. We can't take C to be the answer. Still, choice A holds good there. Let's look at the last choice. Researchers observe that coin toss is not as fair as it ought to be. Is there any predefined thing that it should be like this. As far as the scope of the argument is concerned, nothing is mentioned. And hence, it ought to be, it should be like that. That is a kind of moral obligation mostly. Grammatically, we use ought to with reference to a kind of moral obligation. Even otherwise, to understand the context of the sentence, researchers observe, good, to this extent it's fine, that coin toss is not as fair as, to this extent also it is good, it ought to be. Well, it should be like this. Now it is like a definition that is given. I don't think this is correct. And hence I rule out B, C, and D options based on the underlined parts. Hence the answer is choice A. So to find out the focus of the argument, one, we need to understand the scope of the argument. Two, we need to look at the question carefully, pick the keywords of the question, and then move on to the choices. Pick the words that will not support the requirement of answering the question and rule them out. Once we rule out three choices, what the choice that is left out will invariably be the answer. So this is how we need to look at what is called as the focus of the argument. Hope you understood this. Please wait for my next video that goes with the main idea of the argument. Thank you.